your Proline catalog, send $1 to 10812 Alder Circle, Dallas, Texas, 75238. That's 10812 Alder Circle, Dallas, Texas.
What's ahead for the weekend athlete? Usually sore, aching muscles. But today, there's Sportscreme, the great-smelling rub that penetrates fast to help relieve pain. And without that medicine-y smell, Sportscreme, fast-acting pain relief that smells great.
For sports-conscious New Yorkers, June is the month to leave the asphalt behind and have some fun in the sun. This week, New York golf fans will do just that as they converge at the Westchester Country Club for the 21st Annual Manufacturers Hanover Westchester Classic. At 6,700 yards, the par 71 West course is short by tour standards, yet boasts 3 of the toughest holes on tour. Much like the U.S. Open course the pros will play next week, Westchester's greens are hard and fast. Players must also avoid the long, wiry rough or suffer the consequences. The Classic will draw its share of big names this year, including past champions Ray Floyd and Bob Varsha. Last year, Seve Ballesteros came to the final round hoping to gain his second Westchester title. He overcame a poor front nine by birdieing 3 of the last 5 holes. Birdies at 17 and 18 put him in a playoff with J.C. Snead. On the first extra hole, not even this mighty blow would be enough to get Ballesteros out of the woods. Safely on in regulation, Snead had a short putt for par and his first Westchester title. The victory ended his 6-year winless streak. This week, the Westchester Classic. In the Nabisco Team Charity Competition, the Manufacturers Hanover Westchester Classic is currently 35th with more than 228,000 points. With 3 of its team members earning checks at Avenel, the Independent Insurance Agent Open moved into the top 5. This week's question is addressed to Raymond Floyd, and it comes from Neil Dan of Warren, Ohio. Dear Raymond, why do you wear tape on the finger of your right hand?
Neil, that's the most asked question in my golfing career as to why I wear tape. Everybody thinks it's a big secret. My hand splits under there, and I wear it for protection. If I didn't wear it, I'd bleed and be cut and probably be out of action.
Each week, more tour players will respond to your questions about their techniques and careers. If you have a question for your favorite pro, write us care of Questions, Inside the PGA Tour, 350 Park Avenue, 4th floor, York, New York, 10022. Next week on Inside the PGA Tour.
The U.S. Open always has a little bit of prestige, but I think the thing that's going to make it different this year is the fact that very few people that will be playing in the tournament will have ever played that golf course before.
This will be a very interesting and dramatic United States Open. It will be a memorable one if the younger players here can learn the history.
And a recap of the Manufacturers Hanover Westchester Classic. Next week, look for Inside the PGA Tour on these days. Check listings for the correct time in your area. Inside the PGA Tour has been brought to you by Buick, the official car of the PGA Tour, and by your Buick dealer. By Nabisco Brands, a strong supporter of golf and its charitable activities. And by Gold MasterCard, the world's #1 gold card. Choose the card that makes a difference. Inside the PGA Tour has been produced by PGA Tour Productions in association with Reed Dolph Incorporated.
This is ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. The most important sports car race in the world is coming to a dramatic conclusion, and its reigning dynasty has never been closer to being toppled. Live coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. By Dodge Cars and Trucks. When it's got to be right, it's got to be a Dodge. And by B.F. Goodrich TAs and the new all-weather Comp TA. 23 and a half hours after it began, the 56th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is drawing to a dramatic and exciting conclusion. Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha, welcoming you back to our live coverage of this great French sports car classic. And we've got a dramatic turn of events. Yesterday, before the race began, we told you that we expected a factory battle between Jaguar and Porsche, and that is exactly what we have. Just a short while ago, Klaus Ludwig in the number 17 factory Porsche, whose mistaken gas mileage put he and teammates Derek Bell and Hans Stuck 2 laps down to the leaders, passed Johnny Dumfries in the number 2 Jag to bring his team back onto the lead lap. But speed alone may not determine who ultimately wins this great race. And for more on that, let's go to my pit road colleague through this twice-around-the-clock marathon, Marty Reed.
If this were a heavyweight championship fight, we'd be going into the last round, and every single round would be toe-to-toe, blow-by-blow. What's happened here is both these teams went out waiting to see which one would blink or brake first, and they've used up an awful lot of fuel, so much so that in the early goings of the last 6 hours, they've had to back out by as much as 11 to 12 seconds a lap. With the exact numbers, let's go to Larry Nuber.
The rounded off, very basic figure to keep in mind is 25 liters of fuel for every 15 minutes on the racetrack, or about 100 for every hour. Both the leading Jag at the time, the number 2 car, and the leading contender, the number 17 Porsche, came in about 1 p.m. And at that time, both of them appear to have enough fuel to go the distance. With 2 hours to go, the Jaguar had 210 liters of fuel in its tank, and the Porsche had 243. And it seemed to us that both of them were in a position to stand on the gas and race to the finish if they needed. But during the last half hour, as Bob Varsha told you, the leading contender, the number 17 Porsche, has picked up the pace and moved to the front. And in just 40 minutes on the racetrack, used up an enormous amount of 86 liters of fuel. And that number put them over the limit. By my calculation, I believe they have to decelerate to finish this race. The Jaguar should be able to go the distance. We'll be back after this break to take a look at the race summary up to this point.
The big Q stands for quality. In Quaker State's 11,000 RPM Porsche, in Ricky Rudd's high-torque Buick, clean-running Quaker State with QSX gives them unbeatable protection from wear and tear.
And it's the same Quaker State you buy right off the shelf.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. Quaker State leads the pack again. Introducing the Easy Flow bottle. It pours smoother than other leading oils. Quaker State, unbeatable protection in a better pouring bottle. No one else has it.
ESPN heats up your summer in and out of the water with hot Tuesday nights. Each week, pro surfers take you on a ride you'll never forget. Professional water skiers scorch the surface with treacherous jumps. Then hit the beach for a potpourri of red-hot fun. Hot Tuesday nights sizzle each week at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN.
Ooh, it's hot.
Welcome back, live at Le Mans, France. Bob Varsha with you. We apologize for that short audio problem. Here is our race recap to this point. Your leader is Jan Lammers, 31 years old, out of the Netherlands. Average speed, 136.72 miles an hour, about 2 miles an hour under the record. There have been 27 lead changes, extraordinary in a race like this. Of the 49 cars that began, 27 remaining, just under the record of 30 finishers. That's very low attrition. Consider that last year only 15 cars finished the race. 2 cars are on the lead lap, and that is where we are directing our attention. As I mentioned, Lammers leads. In second place, Klaus Ludwig in that factory Porsche. In third is Frank Jelinski out of Germany. In fourth place, Derek Daly in another Jaguar. Fifth place, Didier Tays of Belgium. And John Andretti follows up in sixth place in yet another Porsche. Larry, I don't think I have seen a 24-hour race that has come down to something as close as this, as you look down upon your leader, Jan Lammers.
Well, there are less than 3 minutes that separate the leading Jaguar, the number 2 car of Jan Lammers, and the number 17 Porsche. Also want to give a tip of the hat to the Yost team. They're currently ranked 3rd and 5th. They've had a tremendous race, and you can see the Porsche, the leading Porsche, the number 17 Porsche, digging to make up ground, trying to carve into, and in just the last lap, they have decreased the distance between first and second. It's down to 2 minutes and 51 seconds, Bob. They're moving in. The question is, do they have enough fuel? One. The second question, do they have enough time? We are about 25 minutes or so from the end of this race.
Fans of racing in the United States may not be aware that these cars in Europe are under a restriction. They can only use 2,550 liters of fuel for this 24-hour distance, and it adds an extra important equation when figuring how far you can go and how fast you must try. The pace from the beginning of this race has been blistering. We've already had some rain this morning that slowed the cars for a while, and that, Larry, might make the difference for a couple of these teams.
That might make the difference, particularly for Porsche. And, Bob, one other comment about the Jag team. They may, and I underscore the word may, they may have one more trick up their sleeve, because from my monitoring of the situation, the fuel situation, the Jag should be in a comfortable position. I have not seen that sudden acceleration of speed, which drinks up a lot more fuel. I've not seen that from that, and I think that they still do hold the ace in their hand, that if they need to stand on the throttle, they can just a touch more.
You see Klaus Ludwig now. While we were introducing you to our show, he made his final stop, we are now being told, and he is back to 1 lap down to Jan Lammers in the Jaguar. So Klaus Ludwig, who made a mistake earlier in the race and ran out of fuel in his very first stint, he tried to stretch it an extra lap and ran out of fuel, had to creep into the pits under the power of the starter motor, fell 2 laps down, and it is now time for Klaus Ludwig, a 3-time winner of this race, to redeem himself.
And even though I'm suggesting that the Jags do have enough fuel, that does not necessarily mean it's in the car right now. Looking back at their recent stops over the last 3 hours, it would seem to indicate that they have to stop one more time also before 3 o'clock. But that's one piece of information we do not know.
And keep in mind that fuel stops normally take about 2 minutes. A lap of this track, even at the great speeds that you're seeing on the Mulsanne Straight right now out of Jan Lammers, 230 miles an hour or so, it still takes a little over 3 minutes to make that stop. Of course, the longer that Lammers runs right now, the less time he's going to have to spend in the pits taking on fuel, because obviously he won't need as much.
And pit stops are not quite as precarious here in the 24-hour races. They are, as we are accustomed to seeing them in IndyCar races or Winston Cup races back home, where the crews will only spend 15 to 20 seconds on the average in the pits. There's a great deal of hustle and bustle moving around. And because we're talking about gravity-fed tanks here, every pit stop takes a minimum of 2 minutes. And it really takes the pressure off, because crew member from the top to the bottom, as well as the driver, knows when they come in that they're going to be there for at least 2 minutes.
50 liters a minute is the regulated flow here at Le Mans, and it's something that all the teams have learned to deal with. Down through the Indianapolis turn with its slight banking goes Jan Lammers. In front of him, the Andretti machine, presently being driven by young John Andretti, nephew of Mario, cousin of Michael. And Jan Lammers has his headlights on so that Andretti will know that the leader is coming through. The young Dutchman taking no chances, with probably the most important victory of his young career at stake right now.
This would be a very big victory for Jan. Jan has tried his hand at Indianapolis car racing a couple years ago. The project never really got off the ground, although there were times when he was bloody fast. He was as fast as anyone on the circuit. And he's been trying to really make a name for himself here in Group C1 or World Sports Car Racing, and this would be a significant moment for him. Which one comment about that Andretti car, those of you who might have missed one of our earlier reports, they've been running on just 5 of the 6 cylinders for about the last 5 or 6 hours because they had a fuel line problem.
In case you're wondering, as Lammers goes inside a slower car, that's a Rondo, ironically the same brand of car that last beat Porsche here at Le Mans back in 1980. The closest finish in the history of this race came in 1969, when eventual 6-time winner Jackie Ickx of Belgium, driving a Ford, caught Germany's Hans Hermann in, what else, a Porsche on the very last lap. He won by 120 meters. We may see that top today, and the Jaguar is pitting. Jan Lammers is pitting.
Well, as we suspected, if we look back at the last 3 hours, their pattern seemed to be they were going to have to stop one more time. Now, let's watch it carefully. Remember, those of you back home on the other side of the Atlantic, don't panic. That is, if you're a Jag fan, if this stop lasts more than 2 minutes. That is routine. He probably has about a 4-minute cushion. That's our best guess, because he had about a 2-minute lead before the Porsche made its stop. Now, the Porsche is likely to get back on the same lap with this leading Jag. You see Tony Dow, one of the team leaders, right hovering over the top of the car. And, Bob, that was a quick pit stop.
Yeah, about 15, 16 seconds by my reckoning, and as we suspected, they did not try to fill the tank. They just tried to put on enough fuel with a margin of error to get Jan Lammers to the finish. And what a spectacular victory this would be for Jaguar. Their drivers, all young, all relatively unknown. Lammers in this car, which he has been sharing with, help me with this one, Larry, with two other young drivers. Between them, do not have as many starts in this Le Mans race as Derek Bell in the number 17 car, being shared with Klaus Ludwig, has victories in the race. The crew in the car, in addition to Lammers, is young Andy Wallace and Johnny Dumfries of Great Britain. I'm getting so excited, Larry, that I'm losing track of these names that I've been trying for 24 hours to remember. Between them, they do not total the 6 races that Derek Bell has won here.
And each of those 3 drivers in their own way is struggling to establish himself in the motor racing game. And the win would be so important to each one of them in his own way. This would be a big day not only for the factory, but for the 3 individual racers also.
There is the number 17 car, Klaus Ludwig, coming to the end of the long Mulsanne straightaway. And as he does, Marty Reed has a comment from pit road.
Well, guys, you were talking about the importance of the victory to each of these guys. American viewers probably remember Johnny Dumfries when he was teamed with Price Cobb last year in the last few races when Cobb was battling the Lowenbrow Porsche of Al Holbert for the season-long championship. And it was Dumfries who made a terrible mistake at San Antonio, crashing the car and taking Price Cobb's chance away at the driving crown. So this would sort of redeem him in the eyes of many people across in the U.S.
Well, good point there about crashing. Indeed, Lammers, the guy in the car right now, also has a reputation as something of a fender bender. In fact, members of the other teams call him Jan Slammers. He has spun a few cars in his day, has the young man, but today he stands to do very well indeed, winning the 56 24 hours.
Remember, going all the way back to the beginning of this race, we thought that this was the Rabbit. This car has essentially, except for a brief Porsche period for about 4 hours, led the race from the beginning, and Lammers has been the quickest.
Well, we have an exciting conclusion coming up. Wallace, Lammers, and Dumfries for Jaguar are your leaders. Chasing hard is Klaus Ludwig. We'll be back live to Le Mans, France in a moment.
If you like the looks of this, the El Paso Chevy dealers think you should take a good look at this. Chevrolet Cavaliers. Sleek styling, aerodynamic design, smooth road handling, and high performance make Cavalier fun to drive. There's one more thing you should look at. The Cavalier is priced $1,000 less than Mustang.
Have you paid too much for a Ford lately?
If you like what you've seen, wait until you test drive one at your El Paso Chevy dealers. Olay, Rudolph, Vista.
Sunday, June 12th, you're invited to a free HBO preview on Cable Channel 21. Scheduled to appear are many of your favorites, including The Man of Steel, The Man of Adventure, and A Man with a Mission. Find out what's happening on HBO Summer '88, Sunday, all day, June 12th on Paragon Cable, Channel 21.
Time world driving champion Alain Prost leads the Formula One circuit northward. An international field accepts the challenge of the Grand Prix of Canada. Sunday at 12:20 Eastern, live on ESPN.
Porsche and Jaguar teams have come to the wall here at Le Mans. Only a precious few minutes remain in the 56 24 hours of Le Mans, and Jaguar is leading. There's plenty more action coming up today live here on ESPN starting at 12:20 Eastern Time. Ayrton Senna of Brazil has the pole for the Grand Prix of Canada, followed by his McLaren Honda teammate Alain Prost. Berger in the Ferrari, followed by Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, and Nelson Piquet back in 5th place with the Lotus, coming your way at 12:20. At 4 p.m. Eastern Time, look for the Budweiser 400 from Riverside International Raceway. Ricky Rudd has the pole, followed by Rusty Wallace, Terry Labonte, and Neil Bonnet. By the way, Scott Pruitt won the International Race of Champions at Riverside yesterday with Chip Robinson, a fine road racer in his own right, in second position.
And remember that Ricky Rudd is among the walking wounded. He is certainly a road course specialist, but that is a terrific performance by Ricky Rudd, who is hobbling around after being injured at Charlotte about 3 weeks ago.
I was at that race. He took a tremendous shot. In fact, for the World 600, the Coca-Cola 600 that followed, he was in a leg brace. I can't imagine how Ricky Rudd got back in the car, but that's the way stock car drivers are built. Indeed.
On a road course.
Well, the leader you're watching now is Jan Lammers out of the Netherlands, driving in his second year with the Jaguar team. Over the hump he comes, down the Mulsanne Straight, reaching 230 miles an hour, the right-hand kink. In front of him is his teammate, Derek Daly, in the number 22 car. We'll see if Daly moves over as Lammers approaches as they head into the tight Mulsanne turn.
It is likely that he will. Daly, by the way, has also had a very stout week. Let's see what move here that Derek makes. As they come out of Mulsanne turn, they're heading toward what I like to refer to as the back section of the course as we go back to the second place Porsche, the number 17 car. And what do we determine? That Stuckey is behind the wheel right now. Hans is there.
Now Klaus Ludwig
Klaus
is presently
Ludwig,
driving.
okay. Klaus Ludwig, the man who made that error that seemingly put them completely out of contention for this win, but they have come back. It's been a long uphill battle, and there you see the two car of Jan Lammers getting by as Derek Daly moves over. Daly, as I started to comment, has been one of the stronger running Americans over here this week. I think he surprised a few people. That car, there is some indication there is Derek signaling to his teammate, hey, you're clear, go on and take home the checkered flag for the purple and white, the big cat Jag for 1988. But Derek has been very quick, and it seems as though, I think he surprised a lot of people and got the maximum out of this machine.
Oh, he definitely has. Derek Daly, who was tested very late before this race by the Jaguar team. In fact, a lot of names were tossed up for Jaguar. In the short 3 years, a lot of drivers would have loved to have had that seat. But Kevin Cogan and Derek Daly took those seats along with Larry Perkins, a saloon car driver from Australia, and they filled out that 22 car for Tom Walkinshaw.
Kevin, by the way, was telling me that the reason why he got this seat is that he was one of the finalists for the IndyCar seat. Things just didn't materialize, and in the final transactions, Tom Walkinshaw promised him this ride at Le Mans and delivered.
Well, that'll give him his opportunity to take a slap back at Porsche for not giving him that ride. What better than to take away the prize that Porsche treasures most? After 12 victories in this great race, including the last 7 in a row, we may be seeing the end of the Porsche dynasty, at least for 1988. And now, an unusual tradition, or perhaps not so unusual when you think about it, is the flying wedge finish here at Le Mans. And I suspect that perhaps what Derek Daly in the number 22 car following has been told to do is stay right there with Jan Lammers. They feel like perhaps they've got this one in the bag. As you take a look at the clock there, I'd say unofficially 12 minutes to go. Lammers will team up with Derek Daly, and if they can find the third car out there running on the racetrack, they will probably team up with it as well to give Jaguar a beautiful photo finish.
Well, 3 of the 5 entered Jags will finish this race, but for the 21 car, it was quite a struggle. The All-American team of Danny Sullivan, Davy Jones, and Price Cobb had serious problems during the night, and they went back to 54 laps in arrears. And in talking to Ian Reed just before they got the car back out on the racetrack, and then you see the Porsche giving all its car right to the very end. Ian says, our goal is to get back on the board, and the board they were talking about, there's a leaderboard down in each of the pits that has the top 20 on it, and that was their goal, to get back there, and they've worked their way back up to 17th position, having completed 325 laps to the leader's 388. So you can see they've actually cut into that just a touch, and when the 21 car did go back onto the track, it was the fastest car on the racetrack, but that is not so surprising because they didn't have to worry about the fuel consumption problem.
Speaking of fuel consumption, to give you an idea of why fuel is very dicey at this point, both for the 17 car and for Lammers, is because not only are they limited, but they have also been driving at such a breakneck pace. The total distance covered in this race for this 8.4-mile layout was set last year when Stuck, Derek Bell, and Al Holbert of the United States won this race. They completed 354 official laps. That mark passed a long time ago. Jan Lammers is now working his 390th lap. So the record book is going by the wayside in more ways than one. Porsche's name at this juncture looks as though it will be stricken, while Jaguar will set all sorts of records for distance and for knocking off the reigning dynasty. We'll be back looking forward to an exciting conclusion of the 24 Hours of Le Mans after this.
Dodge Daytona. When you look at its long list of standards, its 770 protection plan, when you consider that Daytona is $346 less than the Ford Mustang LX hatchback, we think you'll agree, when it comes to price and performance, it's gotta be a Dodge. The Dodge Daytona, just $89.95.
Now get up to $1,500 cash back on Daytona models in stock.
Bob Strange, B.F. Goodrich test engineer.
After years of testing B.F. Goodrich tires, we've developed the all-weather Concierge. It's a real performer in any kind of weather. I believe the all-weather Concierge is the best high-performance all-weather tire in the world. I mean all-weather.
B.F. Goodrich TAs, tested tough to make your car perform.
The Union Jack beginning to sprout all around this Le Mans circuit, the Circuit de la South, about 170 miles southwest of Paris, France, where the skies are cloudy, but the day could not be brighter for this man, Jan Lammers, and his Jaguar team. Put together by Tom Walkinshaw, a Scottish racer/businessman, 2 years ago. They have failed twice to win this race, but in between they have won virtually everything else imaginable, including America's version of the 24-Hour Classic at Daytona Beach, Florida, last January.
And who was it but Derek Bell himself who said that in 3 years the Jag will win Le Mans?
At the top of this show, I asked Derek about that. He said, well, we still think Porsche has enough to win. And Porsche has put up a tremendous fight. Make no mistake about it. In the one race they have chosen to compete in because they value Le Mans that highly, they brought a car, they brought 3 cars that were the fastest things on this racetrack. Hans Stuck hit 241 miles an hour on the Mulsanne straight in qualifying. He and Mario Andretti and the Porsche team put all 3 cars in the top 3 qualifying positions. But as Porsche knows so well, it's not qualifying, it is finishing that matters at the 24 hours and winning.
You're taking a lap around the 8 miles of the 24 hours of Le Mans. And if you missed our earlier broadcast, we described this course. There is nothing like it anywhere in the world. That was the Mulsanne straight that the leaders were on. And this is at the
coming down to Arnage.
End of Mulsanne, after the straightaway after that down to Arnage and headed up towards the Indianapolis corner. The Mulsanne straight uses up almost a half, maybe 40% of this course. And the rest of the course here, the section that the Porsche is going through right now, resembles, as we described it earlier, perhaps Elkhart Lake, Watkins Glen. There are pieces of it. But the point is, we are going through the actual countryside, and about 8/10 of this track are normal highways the rest of the year. This is a road race in the truest, most pure sense of the word, and this race dates back all the way to pre-Indianapolis 500 and actually to the very beginnings of the sport of motor racing itself. Paris to Bordeaux, it's not exactly the same course, but this is where it all began. And if you're part of this madness that we know as motor racing or auto racing, you have to thank the French, whether you want to or not.
Notice the bottom of your picture, the 3rd Jaguar. I believe that's the number 21 car making its way up. Expect a 3-wide Jaguar finish and expect to see flags all around. Unofficially, 6 minutes remaining at the clock above the start-finish line at this fabled race course. Formula One racing has been held here in town. Believe it or not, they actually hold a 24-hour motorcycle race at Le Mans. Talk about Iron Men.
How about a 24-hour truck race?
I think I'll pass on that one, thank you. As Jan Lammers leads his teammate Derek Daly, and they hope for their 3rd teammate, I believe that's Larry Perkins, coming up behind. No, I believe that's Bryce Cobb in the 21 car to come up behind. It should be a spectacular finish indeed. As Larry mentioned, these are country roads that run on and off the property of the Automobile Club de l'Ouest. They own a racetrack. In fact, they own a very large and very beautiful racing facility, which they then open the gates of and spread out onto the country roads to hold this 24-hour classic. There you saw one of the turns that takes them back onto the property. They will go around a little bit of a different road for this sports car course, 8.48 miles around. Within it, there is a hippodrome. There are hundreds of homes and businesses. There is a golf course. There is even a kart course named for Alain Prost.
That's go-kart, not kart Indy cars. All the people are standing here in France getting ready for the conclusion. There is an enormous Britain crowd here. More British people attend this race than from any other country, and they have been cheering the Jags loudly, and now they are all assembled and in readiness for this win. We expect that 3 wide crossing the line. We have seen it at Daytona if you're American, following American racing. And at this point, the Porsche is 2 minutes and 35 seconds behind. They are on the lead lap with the leading Jag, but certainly not a threat to win, as we are now within 5 minutes of the conclusion of this 24-hour marathon.
And what a shout is going to go up. You see the fans beginning to scale the fences. That's a very dangerous thing to do, but we predict, and I can be very confident about this, there is going to be madness when this race finishes with Jaguar up in front.
Bob, believe it or not, on Wednesday, that was the topic of conversation when I was standing in the pits with the Andrettis before they went out on the track the first time. John, Michael, and Mario were standing there, and the subject of post-race came up. And the first thing out of everyone's mouth was, as soon as you cross the finish line, be prepared to stop immediately. That was a 15-minute conversation before the first practice began.
And in fact, there has been a darker side to the great fan enthusiasm for this race. In fact, a group of British fans were arrested at this point on the race course. The corner workers waving their flags in salute to the winners. By my estimation, we have about 4 minutes. I think they will
one more lap.
I think they might slow down a little bit on this last lap. They know they've got it won, and they want the clock to strike 3 o'clock here in France before they get there. And I think the corner workers know that as well.
I'll tell you, they better be careful, because they are only about 6 or 7 kilometers right here around this 13-kilometer course. And we've got 4 minutes, maybe 3.5 minutes to go. And at speed, 3.5 minutes is about the amount of time it takes you to traverse this course. So they've got to watch the rearview mirrors, although the leader, Jan Lammers, has 2 pulling guards behind him. So they can use up a lot of racetrack, which they're doing right now as Jan motors around.
Don't you know that a man like Tom Walkinshaw, who leaves nothing to chance, has a clock that to the second matches the one over the finish line here at Le Mans.
Yeah.
On the radio, as they pass the signaling pits, Jan Lammers and his teammates are being told exactly how much time remains. Now, this is the first time, not the first time that this has happened. Recall 1982, when a trio of Porsches crossed the finish line, led by the team of Jackie Ickx and Derek Bell, contributing to the mound of victories put together by those 2 legends of sports car racing. They're going to see another one here, folks, and it will be equally historic.
They went across single file. Let's see how the 1988 contemporary Jags handled the situation.
Oh, I wonder if you practice such a thing. I don't suppose they would
do that.
No, that might jinx the effort. And meanwhile, let's give due course to the number 17 car of Klaus Ludwig and to his Porsche team. Ludwig is in second place. This is not a 1-2-3 Jaguar finish. It will at least be a
first, 4th, and 16th.
Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
And the flags continue to wave. It's going to be close. I think they're going to be able to make it, though. Less than a minute and a half remaining in the 24 hours. And I don't envy our colleague Marty Reed down there in the start-finish area, who's going to try to get an interview with our winners. It is going to be chaotic. We'll do the best we can to bring you all of the exciting action at the finish line as this race concludes.
We're trying to follow the action with our French colleagues who are providing us these pictures. And I'll tell you what, Bob, it's going to be reasonably close, because we are now getting to the section of the racetrack which approaches the straightaway. And what do they have, about 2 minutes to go yet? I think they're going to have to make one more lap.
Well, that might be a good thing. That would give everybody else time to get out of the way.
Yes. You saw the second running Porsche. It was just exiting the Mulsanne straight and making its way around Mulsanne corner. There's another 200-mile-an-hour straightaway there leading up to Arnage in Indianapolis. You can see there's the main straightaway. And let's see if the checker flag comes out or if we're given the one more lap signal.
Down to the finish line they come. Everyone else slowing as well because they want to get stopped. I did not see it, Larry. I think they're going to make one more lap, and we may as well call this the lap of honor because time will most certainly run out now.
Now, the cars look like they're moving at a leisurely pace on your television screen, but as we have told you many times, the TV really robs the illusion of speed. I would venture to guess the cars are easily moving in excess of 130, 140 miles an hour right now, if not more. And as you commented, the people have already vaulted the wall. This is not a particularly safe situation, but I have the utmost and ultimate confidence in the people behind the wheel. They really have turned in a terrific performance this year in 1988 at Le Mans. It's been a tremendously fast but very safe race.
Well, considering it's one of the fastest race courses in the world, certainly the fastest road circuit in the world, the course itself has been beautifully groomed. The Mulsanne Straight here has been repaved. There is an awful lot of fencing that has been added, and I think if there is a way to keep these crowds back, they will certainly try to do that. Once again, all of the corner workers who, in their own way, have risked life and limb to protect these drivers from one another in the dark. Let's take a look at some of the unofficial finish here at Le Mans. In first place will be Jan Lammers in the Jaguar XJR9 Le Mans Special. In second place, as you see it, will be Klaus Ludwig in the factory Porsche. In third will be Frank Jelinski finishing in another Porsche, the private entry from Yost Racing. In fourth will be Derek Daly, and fifth will be a Porsche. And you see the rest